Hi, I'm Bonnie Kimke. Welcome to my studio and welcome to Quilting on a Thread. So this is the 9th edition of my journey I'm taking with you on my path through the Color My World quilt pattern designed by Wendy Williams. The link to Wendy Williams' pattern is available in the description for this video. And it's also going to be periodically displayed at the top. There'll be a little information button, and you can click that button and it'll open up a card that will take you directly to Miss Williams' website. So this edition is actually covering this ring of city homes in the quilt pattern. And there are 4 different homes. So the first 2 homes are block 1, and they are considered a single unit because you're going to sew them together. 3 and 4 are another single unit, and you're going to sew them together. I'm going to piece all of the homes first. It's the way my mind thinks about it. I'm going to piece all of the homes first. I'm not going to pair up blocks 1 and 2 yet. I'm going to have them sitting out on my design board while I decide how to address them, whether I like the way they're organized or not yet. And speaking of the way they're organized, let's cut away and I'm going to show you something. So what you see here is my design wall where I've auditioned my colors and the presumed colors that'll go with each home. And I did this so that I wouldn't wind up with blue heavy on this side, yellow heavy on that side, red down here. I wanted everything to be kind of a garden, if you will, of colors. And I wanted to be able to move the little windows around. Say I didn't want the window here, I didn't want that color here, maybe I wanted it over here or vice versa. Then all it takes is picking up a piece and moving it to see if I like that better. So in doing that, I have all these scraps, and this is going to be great because I'll use these same scraps when I get to the larger homes, the tall buildings. And in addition to that, on each home, I put a colored pin, and the colored pin sat out here. And so yellow was for the home number 1, house number 1, blue was for house number 2, pink for house number 3, and orange for house number 4. Didn't matter the colors that I chose, they just happened to be those colors. And as I cut the pieces out for each home, then I went ahead and moved the pin in. In fact, the last 2 homes that I did, and I've been cutting these out in pairs, were these 2 number 4 homes, number 4 houses. So I never moved the pins in, so I'll move those in now. Now this is the approximate size of my Mariner Star and the lower road. So that's the approximate size. So it's perfect for me to be able to go ahead, and as I finish this block, I'll come and take these down, set them in my basket to hold on to the colors, and I'll put house number 1 here. And I'll just replace the houses with each of these. Now, the houses that I'm actually going to sew are much larger than these homes. They're about twice the height of these. This was not to give me an impression of the size of the home. It was an impression of the colors and how they went around my wheel. So I'm going to forewarn you, this video is going to be several days in the making. I'll cut some now, I'll cut some later. But I am sitting here just about ready to begin working on my homes, on the houses. And so I have them in piles. This is the pile for house number 1 for that block. And there are 8 houses in here, and they're all pinned together and labeled. Then I have a similar pile for house number 2, for house number 3, and for house number 4. I'm probably going to start out picking 1 house from each pile, and sew house number 1, put it up on my design board. So house number 2, up on my design board, and so on and so forth. When I get a series of houses, when I get several houses sewn together, I'll come back and let you see how that's progressing. I'm not going to demonstrate any of the sewing because, to be quite honest with you, paper piecing is paper piecing. I can only show you folding over, pre-cutting, adding a piece of material. I can only show you that so many times before you're just bored to tears. So now what I'm going to be doing is showing you my method. I also want to contrast and tell you what Wendy Williams' method was. She suggested that it would be a good idea to cut out the strips of the varying lengths that you need and put those strips all in a basket and pull the strips out as you need them and cut those pieces as you go. And I think that for someone who can just wing it and go, that's a great plan. But for me, knowing how my mind works and knowing that that would actually make me very nervous. And so here I am, back at my design wall with the first of each of my house types. House number 1, house number 2, house number 3, and house number 4. So the first one has been assembled for each one. These are not sewn together, they're just placed up here for placement purposes because I can see how that paint effect, you know, when you go to the hardware store and you get a can of test paint, you paint a small square on your wall and you think that looks great in this room, then you paint the whole room and you go, oh, what was I thinking? So I can see how that can have an effect with these, you know, the change in size. So far I'm liking this, but I'm not going to sew anything together until I have all of the houses out here so that I can judge whether that's going to look appropriate to me or not. The other thing to keep in mind is that in a few, after I finish the houses, the next thing I do is I add the greenery, the trees. And so that may change the whole feel of everything. So I'll be doing this pretty much while I'm doing the houses all at the same time, the piecing together and the putting the trees on. I'll be following Miss Williams' pattern very closely for that. So I'm really excited and I can't wait to be able to share with you all of the houses. And so I'm back, and as you can see, I have all of my houses done now. And one of the things that I did this for was to demonstrate that, you know, I could move these houses around. What you may not have seen and is not necessarily alluded to directly in Wendy Williams' pattern is that these houses are all exactly the same size. So by doing things the way I have done and not connected any of the houses together yet, I have the option now of taking a look at my coloring and deciding if I need to make any changes. And one of the things that I do notice is that it's rather yellow heavy right here. Now I have to decide, is that heaviness of the yellow, is that going to bother me? And if so, where could I find a house to change out with one of the yellows, say this yellow? Say I wanted to move this around, where do I find the house? This happens to be house number 1. So this is house number 1. This one I just removed is house 1. This is house 1. Where would I move this to change up the perception of it being yellow heavy over here? Well, what I might do is come along and change it with this house here, which, by the way, is not a number 1 house. It's it's a number 3. So I can move that there and step back and take a look and decide whether I like that look better, or if now the orange and the red are just too strong together. And so if that's the case, then I could come along and take the red out and swap it with, say, another house. This, by the way, is a number 2 house. Down. So I could do that until I decide that my color is my color scheme is the scheme that I want. But you notice that I didn't change a number 1 for a number 1 or a number 2 for a number 2. I was looking at the color. And that's the beauty of this pattern, is that I can ignore now, if I haven't paired them up already, I can ignore the house number itself and just play on the scheme of things. And so you'll get to make your little village entirely your own. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out that is not alluded to in the pattern, it should be obvious, but it's not alluded to. If you take the Mariner star, the Mariner compass, and put it in the center of this, deceptively, it looks like this ring of houses is going to be way too big to come to the circumference of the outer edge of this lower road. That is absolutely not the case. What's going on here with these houses, if we bring one of them to the rim of the road, you'll see that this section of the road is exactly 1/2 of an inch narrower than the house itself. What's going to happen when you sew these two houses together on either side of it is you're going to lose 1/2 of an inch with every pairing of a few houses. So really the circumference of the inner ring of the houses is going to be reduced several inches until it comes and meets with the circumference of the road. The deception is because these are not yet pieced together. So I wanted to point out those two items, those two issues, and to show you that, this is what you will have if you don't sew all of the pieces together en route. If you do sew them together and pair them up as per the directions in Wendy's pattern, what's going to happen is you're going to still appear that they're too far out, but it won't be quite such a shock. You're going to see that they would naturally come together and come closer. I can tell you that I will lose about 8 inches on the inner circumference of the house of ring, the ring of houses. And so my village will come and meet that road. So that's it for this video. And I hope that seeing some of these things, my tips, my tricks, and pointing out some of the pattern idiosyncrasies, if you will, that'll help you on your journey with this pattern or with any other pattern that is circular. I hope that this helps you on your journey, and I hope to see you again here on Quilting on a Thread. Bye-bye now.